Hey everybody, I'm the lead designer Eric Frankhouse for Black Ballad Second Chances, and today we're here to go over how to convert from 5e to Shadowdark. And not just Black Ballad, but really any 5e and the process of how I designed and redesigned a 5e setting, Black Ballad, for Shadowdark, an OSE or OSR, old school Renaissance style of role-playing game, which is something I really enjoy, especially in the last couple of years. So let's go over to the board, go through the steps, and redesign a character that was submitted to us. We got a bunch in the Discord for Storytellers Forge, but specifically, I'm going to be doing one, and it's from Severed Threads. If you don't know what that is, let's take a look. So Severed Threads is a Black Ballad actual play, pre-recorded. They did one last year. The new ones are starting to come out here in the next month, in April. Time of this recording, I think one comes out on my birthday, April 11th. You can see it here on the screen right now. A great cast, and we've gotten one of these characters to convert. But it's hard to convert, right? The level 20 character in Black Ballad, how do you bring that over into Shadowdark, which only goes to level 10? All great questions, all things we're going to go through. I'm even going to kind of walk through the steps I did. I'm writing things out on these little note sheets here. And this is not that hard to do. It's actually much easier than people think. So let's take a look at the PDF, and then we'll look at the steps for what we're doing. So here is Dusk. Dusk is the character we're going to be converting. Delilah. We love this concept, but you're only going to see some hurdles that we're going to have to overcome. We have the Dusk is the character, Godless is the class, subclass is the Incarnate, and then we have a Tiefling. We already have a big hurdle. There's no Tiefling ancestry in Shadowdark. It's not that hard, everybody. It's not that hard. And we're going to get lucky as we go through stats and things like that. You're going to see a lot of similarities to Shadowdark. But the other big thing is we don't have 20 levels in Shadowdark. We have 10. How are we going to handle making these characters a lower level? Don't worry. We're going to step through it all. I'm going to show you. I'm even going to give you a little cheat sheet here on screen that I used. I want to pull up one of my favorite kind of working tools when I'm online, which is just to use Canva. So let's take a look at that, and we'll decide what to do from there. So this is the conversion steps. This is the things that I want to do going over this, is to read over the 5e sheet, match it up to a Shadowdark sheet, do a level convert, go over ancestry and class, or race and class, depending on what version of 5e you're doing. Ancestry is what it's called in Shadowdark. The idea of skills, because there's no skills in Shadowdark, but there's a supplement that takes care of some of this stuff. Abilities, and make sure that we match up as many of the talents and abilities that the character had in the previous game for the new game. You're not going to get them all. C is not like regular 5e. 5e is about skills and proficiency bonuses. OSE or OSR, Shadowdark, we're just going to call it Shadowdark from now on, is about thinking off the page before you think on the page. So what do I mean by that? Well, a lot of the actions you take are just being a player that has learned through playing through the ages, and the things that you know that are smart to do. Like in a dungeon, there are certain doors that are probably going to be trapped. That looking underneath a table, under a drawer, might be where something is hidden. And a GM should just give you a yes or no, or you find something in those situations instead of rolling skill checks all the time. We're also going to have to go over the abilities, like I said, and see what changes, gear, and then check with your GM when you're done. I have a cheat sheet here if we need to write anything down, but I think most of it's going to be on these sheets. I've already wrote a bunch of stuff down in preparation for what we're about to do. So what is Black Ballad Second Chances? That's probably where I should start. Black Ballad Second Chances is our toolbox or toolkit or supplement book that you use to play Shadowdark in Black Ballad. Specifically, we've put a fully replayable adventure in the back. Every time you die, you can go back in and play in Purgatory and try to earn your way out through 2 new game modes. Some of that stuff will come up today as we are rebuilding this character. The Kickstarter, as of today, has 7 days left, 6 probably by the time this goes out. We're trying to hit our full goal, and then there's a bunch of add-ons to get Black Ballad stuff, along with some of the things I've made as well as a designer. Enough of bragging about or talking about the Kickstarter. We're here to redesign a 5e character to Shadowdark. We've got our steps, but what we need to do is dissect that character sheet and see what needs to change. So let's take a look at Delilah, or Dusk, and what we need to do to make sure that that is being portrayed properly in Shadowdark. And we have some hurdles. We have some hurdles. So we already know right now that ancestry is going to be a problem. I'm going to walk through this live. I'm not going to do a lot of cuts, so stick along. I'll tag down below for where things are, but we're not going to do cuts. We're just going to go through it. I've rebuilt this character once as a test for myself, and it worked really well, and it took me about 30 minutes of time to do. Probably it'll take a little bit more showing you how to do it. So what is this character? We're going to have to go back over the board, take a look, and that'll give us an idea of what we're looking at. Now, Dusk is a level 10 character. We're going to zoom in here and kind of scroll back and forth on screen. We have a chaotic neutral level 10 character. So we already know that level 10 is not going to work because, well, you're not a level 10 because there's no level 20 in this game. So we need to chop down the power level a bit. Then we also know they're chaotic neutral. Chaotic exists in the game. That makes it very easy. The background is Acolyte, which will transfer really well. Age doesn't matter too much. We go over here, the name Godless. In Black Ballad, Second Chances, I've added the Godless class. I took apart a couple of different things to build the Godless class. The Incarnate is a subclass of them. And while I love the idea of running the Incarnate, we don't have subclasses in this. But the abilities from that subclass, I have baked into some of the game modes. And I think we can give her powers from that to make up for not being an Incarnate. Ancestry is Tiefling. Look, Tiefling, everybody, we don't have Tieflings in really anything. We haven't built them. Nobody else has really put them out. And we have to remember, in Shadowdark, there's no dark vision. So there's some things from Tiefling that need to change. Now I'm going to pull up on screen a Tiefling in 5e, and we're going to take a look at the abilities that they get and what we can keep from this, right? Like, we need to know what is a usable piece from that. So let's take a look at that. And I think this is kind of where I want to start. When we're looking here, we said read over it, match it up, level convert, ancestry and class, and skills. So read over it. Well, our first hurdle is the ancestry. We're going to have to figure out how to convert Tiefling over. And looking at Tiefling here, it's not that hard. There's no ability score creases with any form of ancestry in Shadowdark. I can't think of one that gets it out of all the supplements, third parties, and things that have come out. We didn't even do that with ours that are in the Black Ballad. Our Second Chances has only a few things in it for ancestries. So we didn't bring over Tiefling. And Tiefling's really kind of a 5e 3.0 and up race. So what do? Well, I would pull up the premium or your Shadowdark edition of the book. I would go into the ancestries there and look at what an ancestry looks like. And we're going to do that. And it's pretty fucking easy, guys. Look, this is Dwarf, Goblin, Elf, and Half-Orc. This is just the core ones in the book. Now getting into the Cursed Scrolls, you'll notice they have a description, the languages, and one ability. One. That's it. Not 5, not 6. So we need to decide out of the things that Tiefling gets, what's it going to be? Well, it can't be ability scores. We don't do that. Age doesn't matter. Alignment, problem solved. There's only 3 in this game. We're going to give her chaotic, and that'll solve that problem. Base walking speed's 30. Guess what? In Shadowdark, there's only a couple versions of movement in Shadowdark, but everybody moves what is considered a distance. They don't have feet allotments, right? There is close, which is 5 foot. Obviously, we're not going to move that. Near, which is 30 foot. That's the main general measurement. So we're going to have a near movement, which matches what the Tiefling has. And then far is something with insight. There are a few different things in distance and movement, such as double near, which is to say 60 foot. Usually that's for ranged weapons and some spells and things like that. So what do we keep out of this? We can't keep dark vision, because nobody has dark vision besides monsters in the game. And it would break the idea of torchlight and darkness and shadow within Shadowdark. It's in the fucking title. But Hellish Resistance, this here we can keep. And these here, we could do that as well. We can give them the demon language, which is diabolic. Now, as a note to other GMs, if your campaign setting that you're running has a bunch of languages that aren't in Shadowdark or whatever system you are running and coming over to Shadowdark, just keep it. Just keep the language or supplement it for the one that's in the book. If it's diabolic in Shadowdark, but you use Infernal and you're converting, then just use those languages and keep them. And keep that in mind as you use your monsters to add those languages. Or if you want to simplify it, you just say, yeah, you have Diabolic now, which is what we're going to do today. You have Diabolic. That is the language, the Shadowdark that we're using in the setting of Black Ballad. It makes sense. If you want to keep it Infernal, that's really up to you. We don't have to worry about any bloodlines or anything like that because that's not something that we have the option of when doing Shadowdark builds, I guess you would say. Really, you're only going to be able to do the things that are in the game, and you want to match up those things as eloquently as possible. So let's head back over and let's take a look at what we can do with that tiefling and how we want to handle the resistance for it. And then we can really start getting into the nitty gritty. So out of this, we know we're keeping the languages and we're going to be doing some form of hellish resistance. It's really simple. We're just going to give her half damage from fire. It just makes the most sense because if you look at the tiefling ability that is on the screen right now, they get resistance to fire damage. And we're going to do the same thing on our character sheet. So let's go over to the character sheet. I filled a little bit out just to, time. So you can see I've got her name, the Dusk Delilah Bright, and then we have Tiefling Acolyte is their background, which we'll get into. They're godless, they're chaotic, they're level 5. No deity, because we don't know what their deity is as a player. I would have to ask that player. And Incarnate is going to be their title. There are titles for classes, and I figured this makes the most sense for what we're doing right now. So we're going to give her resistance, half damage from fire. Now, you'll notice I have this little demon thingy here. I love just having an emoji to break things up in a character sheet. And this is also a advanced detailed character sheet for Shadowdark. It's got 2 pages instead of 1 to make our lives a little easier. So now, looking at this, we know that we've done our tiefling and we know that we have what's needed. So we got to talk about matching it all up, right? What does matching it all up mean? Well, match it up is to make sure on the character sheet we have the things that are important, that we have brought them over and put them in their spots so that we can assign what they do if there's anything special. So on her character sheet, the person who is playing Dusk, I noticed that there's a lot of abilities, there's some arraignments, and they also have the stats, and that's important. How do we do our matchups for stats? Well, look, thankfully, the stats are the same. You're going to 18. There are some limits on caps, but this character, if we go look at her, isn't crazy. They have a 9 strength. They have a 9 dex, a 13 con, an 18 wisdom because they're a wizard, not wizard, a cleric. And then they have a decent intelligence of 11 and a high charisma. Well, guess what? All of this stuff can be brought over onto the character sheet and be fine. And with the idea of how we want to match and do this stuff, we're not breaking the build in any form or fashion. So what I usually do, I pull out myself a writing stick, right? I'm just going to use this marker that I have, and I'm going to write our stats across the top on this piece of paper. 9, 9, and then we had a 13 for your con, right? A wisdom. Ooh, wisdom is an 18. We have an intelligence of an 11, and we have a Z. And I'm saying Z as a designer, we went with Z for charisma so that when you're doing these single letter abbreviations, it's not CH, so that it doesn't look like con and con. Z for the Riz is what we're using. If you don't like it, tough. We're going to do it anyway because that's what we like. So when you go over to the sheet and you look at this, how do we transfer it over? Well, we go over to here and we're just going to type it out. I have them all written down in front of me to make my life easy. This character sheet does some of the work for us. 9, 9, 13, whoops, 13, not 16. She wished she had a 16, an 11, an 18, and a 17. All of the stats are now in place. And we're done with that. Super easy, super simple. But again, the Riz, baby. So what do we do now that we have our stats in place? We know our ancestry. Well, the next step that we have here is for us to go into level convert. You'll notice I put level 5. So in the Second Chances zine, I really had to kind of decide how I wanted to handle level changes because you're dealing with a lot of level 20 on down, and monsters can be higher level, but you don't see that much inside of second chances. Well, especially in Shadowdark as a whole. You're only going to level 10. So, I did some formatting notes in here for people about using DCs, why I abbreviate the way I do, what the bold and italics are as the designer for it. And you'll see that we repeat that as we go through our ancestries and so on. But class work, how am I gonna fix this? Well, you chop it in half. What I realized when I was doing all of my how do I convert this over and make it function, if you're a level 20, there's no 20. There's only 10 levels. It's got to be level 10. I looked at the hit points on average, your bonuses to hit, and how it works between 5e and Shadowdark. And I found that cutting it in half really does work. Monsters are a little different, but for player characters, perfection. So we know their hit points already. We know they have a 63 hit points at level 10. We know that they're not getting a really big con bonus. They only get a +1. And con bonuses in Shadowdark, you only get at your hit points at first level because con plays such a big role in how Shadowdark functions. What do I mean by that? Well, when you die and you fall aground, you get your con bonus plus a d4 in rounds to survive. There's no death saves like normal. You roll a d20, and on a 20, short of a few classes, you stand back up 1 hit point. The only way to get up is through magic, someone force feeding you a potion, or someone making an intelligence 15 check. And that is crazy. An intelligence 15 check is not easy. Why do I say that? Well, so the best thing, if you've ever played D&D, you played 5e, you've realized that there's a DC chart for regular skill challenges. And there's one for stat checks, and then there's kind of one for ACs. That's not how Shadowdark works. Shadowdark says, no, we're cutting it away. There's 4. Easy is 9, normal is 12, hard is 15, extreme is 18. There are ACs in between that, but your DCs for characters overall should play in those 4 numbers. Here's why. You're presenting a number that lets the player solve the problem. How do I get this DC successfully with advantage and disadvantage in my game, and only a stat bonus and maybe some talent bonuses from my class or something circumstantial that maybe I earned during play? So I know that dying and trying to come back with a 15 is hard. That means I know her constitution score of a 13 is important. I mean, she gets 1 extra round. So minimum, she's gonna have 2 rounds to get herself up or for someone to save her. So that takes us to class. We got to talk about the godless. What is the godless? How does the godless work in Shadowdark? Is the godless the exact same thing that existed in 5e? And the answer is no, it's not. We wanted to make Shadowdark feel like Shadowdark. So let's look at the godless class. Godless priests are driven by determination, faith, and loss. They are tragic heroes and villains who understand deep down that their gods have lost. There are major things in a class as a designer you had to look at. Weapons determine class. They don't get everything. There's no martial mixed with simple. No, there is weapons. You get weapons. You don't get everything. As I untangle my beard during this conversation, I'm not even going to cut that. Weapons, club, crossbow, dagger, mace, longsword, sickle, and scythe have been added, and warhammer. That's the things that they get. I looked over what the godless class was kind of about, and I decided these are the weapons that make the class. There are ways to learn weapons outside of that, but to start, that is what you get. Curse Scroll 6, if you have it, has some other options. Armor, leather, chainmail, and shields. I don't want them wearing plate. Hit die is D8 per level. Remember, we only get a con bonus at the beginning. And looking at her character, she had, what was it? I think she had 60-something, 63 hit points. Well, 63 is not going to be a very good amount of hit points from here. But we do know that she gets a D8, right? So we're just going to put D8. Maximum hit points is their total, and damage taken is the other. We know they get a +1. So we could take that 60-something hit points and cut it in half, right? A D8 hit points, we're going to do a little math. This isn't hard. A D8, the average that they usually give you in D&D is going to be 5 instead of 4 because they usually do 1 over. We're going to times that by, instead of 10 levels, 5 levels. That gives us 25 hit points. Not a lot of hit points. She would get +1 normally in this, which would give her 26 hit points. So look at that. That's not even half. Like 63 divided by that 23 is like 2.7. Is that not enough hit points? Is what we have to ask ourselves. Do we need to let her roll some of these hit points? Well, on average, that is what the hit points would be for every other class at this amount. I also think that we give her a full hit die on first level. Let's just say you're playing by D&D rules. She's a little tougher. You don't want her dying too easy. So we're going to go with 4 levels at that 5 instead, right? So 5, 10, 15, 20. And we're going to give her an 8 hit point on that +1. So she got 29 hit points. I think I'm going to go in. I think we could probably give her a dirty 30 following this idea of match it up. Does that match it up work? Do we give her a dirty 30 hit points? Level 5 and dirty 30. She's got a lot of hit points. You know, I think I'm going to do what I would do normally. I'm going to cut the hit points in half minus her con. So minus 10 hit points out of Delilah is going to be 53. And we're going to take that 53 hit points. Oh, actually, minus 10. So it would be 53. We're going to add 1 to that, making it 54. We're going to take 54 hit points. I'm just going to divide this in half. Giving her 27 hit points. Super easy. Problem solved. We're going to give her 27 hit points. So we're going to go down here. We're going to go to our hit point section. Maximum she can have is 27. The damage she has right now is 0. Right? Look at that. We're done. Super simple. So what's next in our cheat sheet? What do we do? Well, our ancestry we've done. We need to go through this godless class and get her all of her abilities. So I wrote down the things that she's known for, right? And we're going to look at the PDF and go through these abilities. I know right now, if we scroll down and we go over here, she's got a bunch of stuff in her abilities. She has armaments. We're going to give her a Nixian sickle blade. So that's going to be easy because I converted the weapons from the core Black Ballad over to Shadowdark. Then we got to go through here. She has advantage against fear. Dark vision's a scratch. Hard no. Gone. We're not going to have it because there's no dark vision for players. There's some people who have argued that you can give them like a power to see in the dark for a short time period. Just tell them no and carry a torch. It's just part of the game. It's the mechanics. You don't change a board game mechanic every time. This is a core trait to the game. And by changing it, you disrupt the game flow entirely. So what else do they have? Hellish Resistance, we gave them that. Infernal Legacy, well, we could give them an Infernal Legacy, but I think being a tiefling is that. And that Infernal Legacy, if you go back and look at the idea of being a tiefling, that means you pick like Bloodline of Asmodeus, Beelzebub, so on and so on. And we're not going to do that. We're going to keep it clean for this. If the GM decides they want to award them something for that, they can, but we're not going to. Divine Wrath, Necrotic. Well, we're going to have to figure out how to add that. I can tell you there is something to do for it. Aspect of Destruction, Coalescence, Spark of Godhood, Miracle Worker, Caretaker's Mantle, Gift of the Gem Dragon. We got some things we got to figure out. But we can figure out a lot of that stuff just from the base class if we go look at it. We know she's level 5, right? So with that being said, that means that level 1, level 3, level 5, she's going to get godless talents. She's also going to get Celestial, Diabolic, and Primordial. We're just going to give her those out of the gate. She gets Divine Wrath. It's a will DC 12. It's a focus. And with it, you add your Wrath die to your melee or range damage. If you fail to cast, regain after complete rest. The way spells work in Shadowdark is you roll to cast and you can keep casting it until you fail. And her portfolio, you would get once per day, close as the distance, duration equal to wisdom bonus in rounds, so 4 for her, regain after complete rest. And then she would get 3 rolls on this. Now, normally, I would tell them to roll. But for me, I think we're just going to pick some stuff for her. I think it makes more sense, looking at this, I think it makes more sense for us just to give her her abilities that work for what she wants. And the things that we need to do, I have already made in the book. So I've already put them down in the character sheet. We're going to go over that so you guys can see it, along with the class details, how I added it in, and what there is. What I can tell you is we're going to be using a mix of the class, because it's a level 5 character, along with one of the game modes that give us some of the abilities that are not part of the class anymore. So let's take a look over at what we've done and what you can add to make this work for your game. So I decided a +1 to melee attack out of that talent table that there is here, because she is somebody who has a sickle, and I'd like to make her a little better with it. You can also say that at level 2, which normally you don't get a talent, but in one of the game modes, you can. In that game mode, we gave her Aspect of Destruction. Double close, when you reduce a creature to 0 hit points, it explodes in close for 3d6 damage. It is a Dex DC 14. This fulfills that Aspect of Destruction she originally had. The class level, and you can see here I'm breaking it down between class and sovereign mode. That's a mode of play we'll look at in a sec. Level 3, 1 Divine Wrath, gains an extra damage die. I abbreviate stuff to make it fit. Then at 4, Aspect of Death. This one's really cool. You reap the soul within near, gaining you 1 luck. Luck is like inspiration, but you can carry more than 1. And then at level 5, advantage on casting one of your Divine Wraths. Remember, in her character sheet, it said necrotic, so we added necrotic to it because, again, if we go back to this and we scroll down, right here, we have necrotic damage. Pretty awesome. It does everything that we need by having necrotic damage there. So now, since we have necrotic damage, that allows us to use this as her bonus that we needed. 1d8, close range, edge of wisdom, done. You'll notice that I did put a note here when redesigning the Godless class to bring it over to Shadowdark. I wanted to provide as many options as possible, and Shadowdark option means tables. Always feel free to change one of the Divine Wraths to fit a dead god in your setting and assign one of from the table to your deities. If you're playing a game and you need a deity covered, just change one of these. It's that simple. So now that we have this, we're done with the Reaper class, but we're going to fast forward through there. We do need their sickle, because remember, she has a Nixian sickle blade. Well, so we're going to give her that. It's a D4. It's S in wounding, which means slashing. And the new wounding thing is on critical hit, the target bleeds 1d4 damage. They need magical healing or a will DC 12 to stop the bleeding. That's how you stop this from happening. So now we've already got a lot of our stuff in place. We don't have to worry about these legacies. We're just going to close Tiefling out, and we're going to go over here and look at what else is left. We've done our ancestry. We've updated all of our class information on the character sheet. We've put in the class details. You can see that again over here. Then we have our weapon, our club, our dagger, and all that with our little demon emojis. Everything is here for her. We have our Hellish Rebuke. And you'll notice I put a 6th level one because it mentioned that she has Caretaker's Mantle. But you really can't get that again to 6th range or 6th level in the Sovereign mode. That's something you'd ask your GM, hey, is there a chance I could get this early just to round my character back out? GM may say yes, or you get it next level. That's up to the GM. I put it here as a reminder to the player. Now, with those hit points, we also have to talk about armor. Well, let's go look at the character. There isn't anything I have seen in her character sheet that shows she wears armor. If you look here, armor class is garbage. It's 9. And because of that, I went over here and looked. She has a passive perception. We don't have to worry about that. Armor, light, medium, shields, but she's not wearing any. As a matter of fact, if we scroll up her attire, is a shimmering black mermaid dress with vertical stripes. Super cool attire. She doesn't have an AC. How do we handle this? Pretty simple. I wanted to give her armor, but when she said I don't have armor on there, looking at the sheet, I was like, well, we can't do that. We're going to need to figure a way out through other things in the Black Ballad Second Chances that will work for her. So we're going to go over here. We're going to pull up our page numbers, and I'm going to scroll us. You'll notice these are all color-coded. Don't worry, the last one is hyperlinked. We're going to go into the green section. As we scroll through to the green, these are where our sovereign mode is and all that kind of stuff. This is where I got her abilities. You'll see there's Caretaker Mantle here, which is going to be the thing she'll get at 6th level. You'll notice that we also have the Aspect of Destruction here. And we also have Aspect of Death here. This game mode is what you play when you're in the afterlife, playing in purgatory. You gain a new ability every even level. Hence, when we're going over a character, why these levels are what they are. So we've gotten everything but her weapon down. And I said, cool, we can go through. We'll make sure that we have skills, though. We have our ancestor in class. We need her gear, her abilities, and her skills. Shadowdark doesn't have skills. What they have, though, is backgrounds. And you'll remember she talked about her background being Acolyte. That carries over to Shadowdark. But the way Acolyte works is anytime something that does require a roll, if the background of Acolyte could make sense to be involved, you get an advantage. This covers a lot of the skills that you would normally take inside of 5e. But instead of being super specific, you get to kind of talk about what is an acolyte in this game. What do they do? What is their job? What was your job as an acolyte? I think that's important. It gives character depth. Character depth is what you're looking for in Black Ballad. So you give them acolyte as a background. So now if something comes up like rites to passing, or about dead gods, or maybe about the godless themselves, or purgatory, maybe as an acolyte and what I do, I know some of that, giving me advantage on rolls to recall knowledge if me, as a player, doesn't know it. Because remember, in old school Renaissance gaming, or in Shadowdark, as we've said, instead of going, I'd like to make a roll to know what I know, the GM will say, what would you like to know? And you go, does my character, with my time doing stuff, have they ever seen these kind of rites of putting someone to rest and them coming back to life? And the GM goes, maybe you've been to purgatory and you're in purgatory right now. Sure, you do. Or they may say, you might. This is going to require a roll. The difficulty is a 12. And now you know you get an advantage and you get your wisdom on it. I do want to remind people of something. There's a big difference between 5e and Shadowdark. This is a recent thing that the community has found through Kelsey talking, but unlike 5e, 5e allows one disadvantage and one advantage, right? One source, that's it. You can't get two and still walk. No, you get one and one and they wash each other out and there's nothing. That's not how Shadowdark works. You can have numerous sources of advantage and numerous sources of disadvantage. And when you minus them from each other, if you get 3 advantages and 2 disadvantages, and let's just say it is raining outside and rough terrain, then you want to shoot something and you're like, well, I got to overcome 2. No. You have 1 disadvantage. Right now, the disadvantage has more in the pool. You're like, well, I'm hidden. That's an advantage. That guy's spotting for me. That's an advantage. And I have high ground. Would that count? Like, I don't know about high ground. You're like, what about the fact that I'm a scout? And the GM says, yeah, that makes sense. That means you have more advantages, so you end up with an advantage at the end. People don't realize that. That's a huge change between 5e to Shadowdark. It lets the narrative at the table and the conversation between the GM and the people around them be, how do we make sure we're an advantage at the end of this conversation? I really like that a lot. I know that's not converting, but it's something to think about as you're playing the game. So, what is left? Well, we need to add her Nixian blade. And her Nixian blade is pretty powerful. We have some really fun stuff that is in the book on how to add a Nixian weapon to it. We also have to talk about her abilities to add over. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do some of these. I don't know what the gem dragon thing is, but I have ideas. I have ideas on what they are. So let's go back over to her character sheet and add the Nixian blade, and we'll look it up first in the book so you guys can see the magical items and how the Nixian blade functions within the game. So let's head back over. So what does that look like? Well, we have these alphabetized. We're going to scroll up here until we get back into the ends. We have our Nixian blade. Most items in Shadowdark have a benefit and a curse, or a feature only or a curse only. In this case, we wanted both. We wanted, because it's powerful, to have a negative as well. It's an exquisite crafted instrument of battle. This blade is hard as diamond and black as shadow. +3 on attack is huge. Now notice it only says attack. You gain an additional 1d8 force damage when fighting undead, aberrations, or demons. The blade can be any bladed melee weapon. Well, that means it can be our sickle. A curse, though, is while carrying the blade, light sources last half the normal time. So that means that this person's carrying a torch instead of 60 minutes of real world time, because that's how Shadow Dark works, it's cut to 30. They burn through their torches more because this blade drinks of the light. I thought that was a really fun way to put a curse in to make it fun. And you don't become the torchbearer sometimes, which really changes the dynamic within the game. So we're going to go over to her and add it in. You'll see here, Nixian Blade, added in. All the bonuses are added in as well. Now we need to get her gear and her spell and her Divine Wrath stuff. So I went in and added the basic starting gear, all of her slots, all the items, and then on the feats and spells, I added her Divine Wrath. I added her portfolio once a day and how they work and the duration. You'll notice that I abbreviated a lot of stuff to make it fit. And honestly, when I do this stuff, I would probably go back through and add page numbers so I know what pages they are on and in what book. And then you'll see I put her Nixian sickle here as well, so she knows how that functions. She's still 10 to 10 slots is fold up. The last thing I need to figure out, though, going back to this, I've done my gear and I've done my abilities, but we forgot an ability. We didn't do the Gem Dragon thing. What is a gift of the Gem Dragon? Well, looking at her character sheet, if we go back over to it, and we scroll down to where we read this, I noticed a few things. We go over here, and you scroll down, it says that she has advantage against fear. Now, I don't know if that came from her tiefling ability and the infernal, but I was like, what if the gift of the Gem Dragon is she's really good versus fear? So, gift of the Gem Dragon, advantage against fear. I made sure that's there. You go to the GM and say, are these connected, or does the gift of the Gem Dragon need to be something else? Because that sounds like it came while in game. And we would just add it into the little class notes, the character notes for people. So now we've got all of this added. Everything's done. All of this is done. We've got everything from top to bottom for this character added into the actual piece. But I decided, I think she should be wearing chainmail in this game. A 9 is brutal, but what if, now that she can wear it, what if we give her that striped mermaid chainmail? That would look super cool, the scale style. So I put chainmail, but I'm envisioning it as a scale mail. And they can wear it, and they probably should wear it. So we decided to give her a chainmail, and it gives her a bonus and takes 2 slots. So now we have a character that's ready to go with 1 level of growth ready to fill the rest in unless the GM gives it to us, and we've converted our character. I look at the clock right now, it says 37 minutes in total. 37 minutes. It's pretty quick. And if I wasn't teaching it as well, we probably would have been done even faster. So going through, read over it, match it up. So we read over her sheet, we matched it up to the Shadowdark sheet and looked at what we needed. Level convert. Always do half a level. If it's level 20, make it level 10. If it's level 8, make it 4. If it's level 5, talk to your GM, and if 1 level up or down gives you the bonuses, that's where you would start. Remember, too, parties don't need to be the same level. Someone could be 6, someone could be 5. In this game, because of how the DCs work, you get flexibility. You only have 10 levels of play, and death is common, which is why Black Ballad works so well for this, especially the new adventure in the back. Skills. There's no skills. The idea is to get them a background that encompasses the things they were good at in 5e. Acolyte was already her background, but it allows us to have even more flexibility when giving them a background to do the thing that we want them to do. Be an acolyte, be a godless, be a priest that knows their god has lost. So now we bring that into play, and that's how you get your advantages. So how do we handle everything else? Well, I mean, the ancestry was easy. We cut the things that didn't matter, cut the fat, kept the 1. Class was already in the book. If a class wasn't, we'd find something similar, or maybe merge some classes together to make it. It's your table. Abilities, the Gem Dragon's the only one we have a question on. We go back to our GM, and then the idea of, can we keep the mantle for ourselves? Gear, I just looked through her gear list, copied them over, added some things that make sense for Shadowdark, like torches and things like that. Especially in the Sunless Crossing. There's no light. You're going to need light to survive. So we gave them light. And then check with the GM. Make sure that you have done everything the GM wants in the game and that you're not making anyone angry or breaking something that they had in mind. But that's really all you have to do. Now, throughout this book, I will tell you I've given plenty of tips on converting. tips on converting spells, tips on converting your class over. And the reason I use the word convert is because there are people who are in the middle of a Black Ballad campaign, or they're transferring from 5e but really love their character. And we want you to be able to join and play that character until they die. And then when they die, you can play the adventure at the back of the book. We set you up with a way to play. We even talk about modifying DCs and using conviction mode and sovereign mode to go through and play this adventure. It's infinitely replayable, and you get to go through this and die a couple times, lose memories, gain new sovereign abilities, and so on. So my assumption is, since they were already playing the Black Ballad, she's died before. So we needed to give her some stuff to fulfill those powers. So that's it from me on this, how to convert to Shadowdark. I think this is easy. I think this is not hard. If you have questions, leave comments down below. I know we want people to ask, how do they convert your characters? How do I bring something over? I am happy as the lead designer to answer some of those in the comments. I check them almost every day, especially if I see there is a conversation going on. You can also join us over in the Storytellers Forge Discord. You can find me everywhere at Eric Frankhouse Presents. And then I just want to say we do have a contest going on right now for the Kickstarter. We want to hear your favorite death of a PC, an NPC, or even an item. You can find a link down below for that, as well as you died, now what? And we want to hear about it. Tell us about your death. We're going to pick 3 winners. They're going to get art, and they're going to be in our new adventures coming out for Shadowdark as well. Don't worry, this isn't the only thing we're doing. I see you Shadowdark fans. I know you wonder, oh man, another just conversion. I promise you, this is more than a conversion. And you'll know very quickly, because we're putting the PDF out 30 days after the close of the Kickstarter. But that's it for me, everybody. Have a great one. I'm Eric Frankhouse, and I hope to see you guys all in the afterlife. Bats, get me the fuck out of here.